as the hunter watched, he saw the end of that shining staff lift up this shining staff of stone. The people went up to their summer hunting grounds in the mountains. I'm going to bring a story from the Native American Indian tradition. And it's a story from the Cherokee people who used to live in the southeast of the United States. And they were a nation where women were very much, were very honored. They were very honored, and they had a prominent place in the life of the people. And this is a story that would have been told by an older woman, an elder, to the young girls. And I'm an elder. It's 10 years since I stopped menstruating, and I feel like, yeah, I'm in the process of eldering. And it was so lovely for me to hear the stories about all those problems I used to have, which I don't have anymore. So I would like you to imagine that in answer to your question, where do men learn from? You know, how do men learn? You know, maybe these sorts of stories are the ones that perhaps should be told more often in mixed company as regards traditional stories go. But originally, this would have only been told amongst women. Once, a long time ago, the people went up to their summer hunting grounds in the mountains. One of the young hunters was out looking for game, and he saw something very strange on a hillside over there. He saw an old man walking slowly along the top of the other ridge. There was a river in between, and he was leaning on a staff. But that staff was unlike anything the hunter had ever seen before. It was shining, and it looked like it was made of stone. And as the young hunter watched, he saw this old man lift up this shining staff of stone and point it in a certain direction. And then he brought it in towards his nose, and he sniffed the end of that staff. And then he pointed it in another direction, and he sniffed the end of that staff. And then he pointed it in the direction of the people's camp, which was hidden over quite a few mountains. And as the hunter watched, he saw the end of that shining staff glow red. And when the old man brought it in towards his nose and sniffed, he smiled to himself, and it was not a good smile. And the old man turned, and he made his way down the mountain towards the river, heading straight for the people's camp. The young hunter had never seen anything like this before in his life. He had a feeling that this was evil that he was looking at, but he didn't know what to do, and he knew he needed more information before he could go back to his people. So he carried on watching. And when the old man got to the banks of the river, he saw him lift up this shining staff of stone and speak words to it. And then he threw the staff across the river. And as he did so, a bridge of stone appeared. And the old man walked across the bridge. And when he got to the other side, he picked up that shining stone staff, and he carried on walking directly to the camp of the people. And by now, the young hunter knew that his people were in terrible danger. He knew that there was something very wrong and very evil about this man. And so, as fast as he could, He ran back to the camp, and he told the elders what he had seen. The elders looked at one another. They knew exactly what this creature was. He was called Stonecoat. He was a wicked monster and a cannibal. And they said to one another, if he finds us, he will eat us. And that shining staff that you saw, that's like his hunting dog. He uses it to tell which direction people are in. And when he smells it, he knows we are here. The young warriors of the tribe sprang up. They went to fetch their spears, their bows, their arrows. But the elders said, it is no good. None of this will kill him. He is covered in a layer of stone himself. That's why he's called Stonecoat. No. There is only one power that can defeat the power of death. And that is the power of life. The power to give life. We must go to the Council of Women. Only they can help us now. And so the elders went to the Council of Women, and the women, of course, knew what to do. They asked amongst themselves for any who were bleeding, who were on their moon time, who were exhibiting the physical power of the creation of life. And there were 7 such women. They took those 7 women and they asked them if together they would try to save the tribe, to save the people, and they agreed. And so the 7 women were arranged like this. Along the trail that Stonecoat was coming towards them, they first put the oldest of the women. She was a mother of many fine children. And it would not be many years before she would stop having moon time. She went first. And then behind her, came each of the women in descending age order until at last, the final one, just on the outskirts of the village, the tribe, was a young girl who was experiencing her first moon time. And when all the women were in position, the men waited, and they waited for Stonecoat. At last, they heard the thump, thump, thump of that shining staff of his. And there he appeared on the path. When he saw the first woman, the oldest woman, he flinched and he said, "Aye, granddaughter, you are in a bad way." The woman stood straight and tall, and she looked him in the eye and she said, "Grandfather, I am in a sacred way." Stonecoat passed her, but it looked as though he seemed to weaken a bit. And when he came to the second woman, he said again, "Aye, granddaughter, you are in a bad way." And again, the woman stood tall and looked him in the eye and said, "Grandfather, I am in a sacred way." Stonecoat moved on past the third, fourth, and fifth woman, and each said the same words. And each time one of those women spoke, Stonecoat seemed to get weaker and weaker and weaker, until at last he was staggering when he got to the sixth woman. She, like the others, drew herself up and said, "Grandfather, I am in a sacred way." And with that, it seemed as though Stonecoat would not make it to the seventh woman. He staggered and he clutched himself. He clutched his throat, but he just managed to make it to the youngest girl. And when he laid eyes on her in the power of her first noontime, something broke inside him, and the blood poured out of his mouth and out of his nose, and he fell down on the path in front of all the people. At that moment, the medicine man of the tribe hurried forward. He had 5 wooden stakes with him, and he hammered them through the body of Stonecoat, fixing him to the ground. And then he called for all the people to collect wood. They piled the wood on top of Stonecoat's body. And in the late afternoon, when everyone was there, they all gathered round and they lit the fire. As the fire began to get hotter, Stonecoat spoke, and he said, "You have defeated me. The power of your women, the power in their blood has defeated me. But before I die, I will tell you everything I know. For as can be seen, Stonecoat had a lot of magic and wisdom. And as the flames grew higher and the night grew darker, Stonecoat told the people all his healing wisdom, all the medicines they could find in the plants that would heal any disease. And at midnight, he began to sing. And he sang the hunting songs for the deer of the forest. And he sang the hunting songs of the mountain buffalo. He sang all the songs of the animals of the forest and the mountains so that the hunt would always be successful. And at last, towards morning, his voice stopped. And at dawn, there was just a pile of ashes left. And the medicine man came forward and he raked through the ashes. And there, where Stonecoat's body had been, was a crystal, which he took to help him with his healing powers. And there, next to the crystal, where the great shining staff of stone had been, was a lump of the sacred red waddy paint. The sacred red colour that represented blood, that represented life, that represented the power of the moontime and all of the women that had saved the people, that represented triumph. And the medicine man took the lump of red waddy clay paint and he called all the people to him, women first and then men. And he marked them on their heads and on their chests so that no one would ever forget the power of the women. And it was said that whatever the people wished for when they were being marked, whether it was a good marriage, whether it was a long life, or whether it was cure from some illness, it is said that all the people were granted their wish. What I love about that story is that it calls us back to an ancient knowing of the power of creating life. And no matter what we see in the world, whether it's disease or war, obviously we're struggling with COVID-19 at the moment, but no matter what the disasters, within each woman is contained the power of new life. And I think as long as we have that power present among us human beings, it is very hard to give up hope. Star inside an apple is a 5-pointed star, isn't it? And I don't know whether you know this, but the pattern that the planet Venus, which is always associated with the feminine, the planet Venus makes around us is a 5-pointed star. It is a feminine, strong feminine symbol, which is why in so many different traditions you have apples making their appearance.